Get mantra and meditation MP3s at jasongallant.ca. We all know on the spiritual journey that you are working with your ego. And you are working to transcend the ego, therefore the ego is reborn in every moment. So it's not that the ego is bad. If you think you are the ego, that can be a problem. So it's okay to orient yourself in this illusion or Maya or this reality. And in every moment, there will be a new you being born based on absolute authenticity. That's really the goal of enlightenment. And the experience that goes with this is tremendously free. But there are so many forces that are opposing this. Suffering, for one. Suffering seems so real, does it not? Physical pain really feels real. Like that's on another level, right? It's so hard to transcend that stuff. So if you try to transcend something which is too difficult too quickly, you will just grow frustrated and give up. You'll say, hey, this enlightenment stuff's all crap, right? But if you start with something simple, such as, I am not my thoughts, it's very simple, right? You know that you can make a thought. You know that you can create a thought. If I ask you to create a thought about leaves, you can do that, right? So you become aware that you are creating thoughts, and then you can choose, through your own free will, whether to believe certain thoughts that are creating suffering within you or not. This is where it begins. You're beginning the journey to unravel your illusion, unravel your prison system within you, your lack of freedom. They call the grand enlightenment liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from you, your ego, not the true you, but you have enslaved yourself inside a temple of thoughts and idealisms and misunderstandings around what stuff means within you, whether it's an uncomfortable feeling or a comfortable feeling. Now, there is not only the personal ego, which is why people get caught up. They, many times, are on the right track, but they second guess themselves. Why is that? Well, there is this massive collective ego that we all are a part of. The ego of society, the ego of the general collective of suffering, the shared suffering of the collective we are in. And that too will fight to preserve itself just like your own ego. It's amazing how the ego will preserve itself or fight to preserve itself, because a prison known is less scary than the freedom unknown. So as you become conscious of who you truly are, your freedom becomes more obvious to you. And the opposite of freedom becomes also very obvious to you. That's why you've seen sages since the dawn of time fighting for the freedom of collective peoples all over the world. And this is also why many of them were crucified and killed, because the collective ego at the time was not ready to let go. It protected itself, you see? Some people can call them negative forces. Some people could call it ignorance, like I called it in the last video. But ignorance defends itself. You see it all over the internet now, right? So what I'm trying to say is that don't second guess your freedom just because there is also a collective ego that is also going through its enlightenment process. And there are very real forces in there wishing to keep the status quo of enslavement in place. Now, how does this do this? Well, look at your own ego. How many times has your own mind told you a horror story that was not true to keep you trapped in some sort of suffering? It's happened a lot, right? It's happened to everyone on the spiritual journey. But we choose not to believe it. But those forces come very strongly trying to convince you to suffer. Why is this? Well, when you are convinced to suffer and you believe the suffering, you are easy to enslave. The ego enslaves you. And this is also happening on the collective scale. Certain authorities are telling you stories to elicit suffering, to create enslavement. The biggest thing you can do in this world to free the world is to free yourself from your own internal tyranny. Then you become a walking beacon of light. And on that note, I'm sorry if this video is overexposed. The sun just popped out of the clouds as I'm talking. That's just what happens. You set the exposure on the camera and then all of a sudden the sun comes out. Go figure, right? But we're just going to let it just shine. Don't worry, it's not my amazing light. It's just the sun, okay? It's not me walking on water or nothing. It's just the sun. But this is the power that is you. This is, the sun is very much, in astrology, it's considered a part of your illumination process. When you chant the sun mantra, it helps with illumination, self-realization, the self that is eternally shining. When you realize this within you, you become a beacon of light for others. Others then start to see the same thing within themselves. And when everyone sees this, even in part within themselves, there will be a collective shift in what people settle for. People will no longer settle for the stories or the false lies that create suffering within them. They will know the truth. And the truth, as they say, will set you free. Freedom is your natural state. Truth is your natural state. They are one and the same. So stay fast in remembering who you are. Be very resolute about this. Dive into your spiritual practice. Whether it's Kriya Yoga, meditation, pranayama, mantra practice. This will be your shield in these times of momentum, of suffering, this constant vibration of saying, suffer, suffer so I can control you, suffer so I can control you. Stay fast within your true self. Don't believe the stories, especially told by yourself, to you to reinforce suffering. And then take affirmative action in your life. Perhaps the heart will draw you in one direction or the other. There's nothing wrong with that. And seeing as the sun is shining so brightly upon me right now, I will now flow for 5 minutes or so the illumination energy to you. All you have to do is just sit and receive. And I will radiate like the sun, more like a bounce board from the sun. Okay? Here we go. Good. So be like the sun. Let your true self shine through. The self that is beyond mind, that is beyond thought, the source of who you are. That is your greatest weapon against illusion. I hope this helps you on your spiritual journey. Take care for now. Are you interested in working with a spiritual teacher in a formal setting? Well, perhaps the Wisdom Life School is for you. If you're interested in checking out what the Wisdom Life School is all about, just go to aratima.com.